In this week's Across the Pod NFL podcast, I am joined by National Vintage League and Channel 5 NFL End Zone's Chris Milner as we preview NFL Week 16. I praised Jared Goff and the Lions ahead of their game against the Carolina Panthers.
Keep it on offense. Only 3 teams have got more yards per game than the Lions this season, and the Lions have in the top 10 when it comes to passing yards.
And Chris gives his thoughts on Kirk Cousins.
I hate Kirk Cousins, and I will happily go on record every time I'm on a podcast and say that I don't trust him to win big games. And I maintain that the Vikings are still frauds.
Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. We are here for a Week 16 preview, and with me, I've got a returning guest, a well-known member of the NFL UK community. Back with us is Chris Milner from National Vintage League. How are you?
Good, Andy. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I'd be better if it wasn't a three loss straight run for us. I mean, it's but I'm enjoying being back in the UK. I mean, it's nice to be watching Red Zone again and just watching it in the comfort of my own home. But it feels weird being back. Still feels like the jet lag is still a thing for me, but I'm sure I'll be fine in a few days.
Yeah, that looked like a great trip.
Oh, it was amazing. I can't really speak any highly of it. It's just seemed to be such a long time in the process of doing it, and then for it to come and go as well. It's just can't believe it's happened. Really, all seems of a dream.
Never mind. I'm sure you did it again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I actually saw you. If obviously anyone doesn't know, I do work on social media for the Nat Coombs show, so it's quite nice actually. One week seeing your face pop up on the video.
Oh, is it you that forgot to replace my handle with Mike Carlson? Oh, right, well, that was someone else. You're not going to take responsibility for that one.
It normally is me, but because I was away traveling, they sort of got someone else in to. I think he sort of does part of it, but yeah, that wasn't me, thankfully, that time. And of course this week is very different to normal weeks in the NFL. It is of course Christmas week, and there is Red Zone on Christmas Eve this year on Saturday. How will the Milner household look with NFL combined this Christmas? Are you a household that do you have to watch it in secret? Do you just put it on and that's it, or how does it run on Christmas week for you watching the NFL?
I mean, we play the Niners late on Christmas Eve, like almost Christmas Day morning. So, everyone would have gone to bed. I get to enjoy it on my own, as always. It's not really a family thing, football. It's kind of like, okay, you go off there and do that in your corner. Don't bother us.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I mean, I normally have to resort to the iPad, especially Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, especially this Christmas Day being, us playing the Packers at 6 p.m. in the UK. It's going to be a tough one to try and get the family to watch, but I'll certainly, try and have on my iPad somewhere and watch it whilst, I don't know, Elf or Love Actually's on. I'll try and get it on in the in the background.
Don't let it ruin your Christmas, Andy.
I'll try. I mean, watching the Packers last night, I'm not sure to make of that. So, yeah, we'll see. And of course, as a Commanders fan, we will get onto the Commanders later on, but must be great for you. I know you lost on Monday night, whatever it was. Monday Night Football.
I was going to say, what do you mean great for me? I've barely recovered. It was a horrifying evening for me on Sunday night, and I'm not going to moan about the refs because we got away with a couple of calls against the Eagles. It all shakes out in the end, but yeah, needed to win, didn't. Hard road now.
Of course, I remember you came on for our season preview and you had 11 wins you put down, and I think most people thought you were crazy, but you've had a great season so far. I mean, it's 7-8 wins you got at the moment, 7-8-1. It's much better, especially after the start you made. Rivera looked like he was going to lose his job. To now, it looks like you're still in the playoffs as it stands, and you could well be doing that this season.
Yeah, I think I said to you at the time when we'd had that podcast that it doesn't really matter how we do this season, because, if it's good, great. Because at the time, Carson, I think, was still the quarterback. And, obviously that shook out how it did, but, couldn't have really worked out any better for us. And, yeah, better than expected. And I'm not really worried about next year. I mean, we'll get rid of Carson. We'll get a compensatory pick. Taylor will be the backup. And who knows, maybe Sam Howell will be the guy that we all hope he is.
Yeah, it's interesting times because Carson Wentz, I think it's certainly now is a time where Carson Wentz probably has his time as a starter is probably over. I don't think he'll get another starting gig. I think that ship sailed, and I think Heineke's done well, but then you can never quite be sure how he's going to. It's very, very hard one to do because Heineke on his day, there's games where he looks sensational, and other games where he looks quite the opposite. So I think it's hard to know what to do next year because somehow unproven could get a draft pick and could get a quarterback then, but no one knows what's going to happen with that. So I think I'm very intrigued to see what they do, especially with the likes of, I think the Lions will have the fourth overall pick because of the Rams' current forms. I think they may trade down. The Bears may trade down as well. So I think it'll be just interesting to see whether Washington or the Giants or teams like that, whether they do trade up to get a quarterback early in the
No,
draft.
they won't. They won't. That's not the way Marty Herney and Ron Rivera operate. They value the player more than the pick. And they would never they trade, maybe trade down for draft capital. But they know how important picks are. And I think it would be very, very, very surprising to see Washington trade up this year.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Talking of surprising, our first game we're going to preview is the Jags against the Jets. Man, if you told me at the start of the season that this game in December would be important, I'd have laughed your head off. But it is. The Jags are only one win behind the Titans in the AFC South, and the Jets currently occupy the playoffs with a 7-7. Oh no, they're currently just off the playoffs with the eighth seed in the AFC with a 7-7 record. I mean, Thursday night football, I mean, they must have thought before the season started, why the hell was this game being put on prime time? But as the season proved, I mean, it's a game that means a lot. I mean, the Jags were a team that I remember I think it was on Dre's TikTok, had the Jags as a surprise team. And then the Jets, no one thought they'd do what they're doing, especially with the quarterback play they've got. I mean, who'd have thought we're winning 7 games, but that defense is just incredible. So in terms of this game, I'm going to give it to the Jags because I think Trevor Lawrence is just balling right now. I mean, 4 touchdowns in the win against the Cowboys, one of 3 17-point comebacks on that weekend. So I'm going to give it to the Jags. But I will not be shocked any way possible if the Jets do win because that defense is so electric. How are you seeing this game, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the Jags are finding their form. I love the fact they beat the Cowboys, obviously. That should be a big positive booster for them because, everyone was banging on about them as they always do. The Jets, it's an unknown quantity still because, like you said, of the quarterback, carousel going back and forth there. But yeah, like you said, defense is stacked. They've got good skill position players. It could go either way, but I think the smart money would be on the Jags.
Yeah, I think that especially even though the Jets are at home, I just think that you can't keep winning games if the quarterback play that bad. I mean, I've not checked it this week, but before this week, Zach Wilson had less touchdowns, more interceptions than Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco only played 3 games. I think now Joe Flacco has 902 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks from 4 games, where Zach Wilson in 8 games has 6 touchdowns and 6 picks. So it's amazing how he actually looked better in the last game. But I think, I just can't see him keep. I mean, fair play to Robert Saleh, the way he's got this team playing despite really no good quarterbacks all year, apart from maybe 1 game from Mike White. So I think the Jags will win. I just think that the team they're in as well.
Wilson is a year and a half outside of being a top 2 pick, and he's already basically being benched. Resigned to back up to a 5th pick from 2016. That says it all, really.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think he's really. I think the whole issue with the Patriots game where he didn't take accountability for his performance, I think that's completely just broken the locker room. I don't think the players really took that very well, and I don't think the media did either. And I think that's quite a bad look, in my opinion. And I don't think he's really fixed that ever since, really. So I think next season they may give him 1 more year, But we've seen with Josh Allen and Tua and Jalen Hurts, they've given these guys really good weapons, and they've excelled. Whereas the Jets have given him Garrett Wilson. They've drafted a really highly rated receiver and guy who's played really well this year actually, but then he's still not performed. So I think he's maybe got 1 year left at most. But I can see the Jets maybe being one of those teams that do trade out because if they had a good quarterback, even a capable quarterback, maybe like Jimmy Garoppolo or someone like that, even someone like that, they'd be. I reckon double-digit wins. I think it's amazing what they're doing without really any good quarterbacks. Our next game, quick prediction: Baltimore Ravens hosting the Atlanta Falcons. I think even with their quarterback situation in both teams, but Baltimore in particular, I still think whoever's quarterback, I think they'll beat the Falcons, because the Falcons are just a team I think are just not really been in good form. He had a good start to the year, but the last 3 weeks have been quite ugly. So I'm going to give it to the Baltimore Ravens. How about you, Chris?
I mean, this is one of those games that you can't call. I mean, based on their performance last week, you're going to say the Ravens are trash, but then earlier in the season, they were looking good, lost a game, everyone wrote them off, then they came back and won the next one. Again, they're working with not a lot there on offense. David Ajabo's back for the D, so their defense is stronger now. I think it could be the Ravens' day, but Atlanta's very much a trap team, and you never know. One of those times they could end up just randomly turning up and dropping 40 points on you. Who knows? But yeah, that one I think is actually a closer coin toss than you'd have believe.
So you're going for a Ravens win? Is that right?
Maybe. I mean, maybe let's go for another tie. I mean, there've been enough of them this season. Let's go.
Let's go.
2020 tie.
Actually, before we carry on, we just got to quickly recap last week's predictions. Of course, myself with Olivia, Charlie, and Fred. We actually had a good week. So I actually had 12 wins, 12 right predictions, as did Charlie. Fred had 11 and Olivia had 10. So that means that the leaderboard as it stands has me, myself, Charlie, and Paul Hope leading the way with 12 wins, 12 predictions right, with then Fred and Ollie Wilson and Jonathan Dix all on 11 correct scores, with Sam Moore still at the bottom with 2 correct scores from his week 6 prediction. Of course, 2 guys you know well, Dre and George, they both got 8 in week 2 that was. And then obviously Ollie just mentioned then he got 11 right scores in week 11. Are you confident beating those guys?
No.
Simple as that.
I think I'll beat Sam. That's easy.
Yeah. I think most people can beat Sam. I mean, that was quite. I think it was a week when
it's like when you do like starring a reasonably priced car on Top Gear. There are some that like look at the top of the board and like, oh, I want to beat that person. I'm one of those that's like looking at the bottom of the board and being like, I hope I beat that person.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get less than 2, I think that's I think Channel 5 will be on your case if you get less than 2.
Yeah, I know. Plus, I'm just copying you as well, so I'm just hiding behind your predictions here because you're going first. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds. Yeah, you made a good point, Andy. Yeah, I agree.
So basically, you'll take me down with you if you get it wrong.
Yeah, go on. I want to do an opposite. So give me some, and I'll see if I can be contrarian.
Well, this one I can't see you doing opposite. The Lions travelling to the Panthers. The Lions are in amazing form, won 6 of the last 7 games, and even the game they lost with a last-second field goal from the Bills. And they obviously start the season 1-6. So it's an incredible turnaround, and they are currently not far off you guys in the playoff hunt. So it's Panthers in the hand. I think they'll be fighting because they've still got a chance of winning what is this year been the worst division by a mile in the NFC South, which is incredible, really, that they could win the division with a losing record. But I think the Lions, you have to give it to them because the Panthers have been, was it 1-1 and lost 1 the last 2 games, where the Lions are in such good form. I just can't put anything past the Lions right now. So I'm going to give the Lions the win. How about yourself?
I agree, yeah. But for all the same reasons, I think the Lions are, their team is really believing in themselves finally. They got hard done by a lot last year with narrow losses, and earlier in the season, this year with some narrow losses as well. And their schedule, results didn't really very well reflect how well they play or in how many points they also put up. Like they can score. They've got the league's leading rushing touchdown holder with Jamal Williams. Jameson Williams is back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a beast. They're doing it all with Jared Goff. Which is sort of stunning everyone, I think. So yeah, keep it rolling. Lion pride.
Yeah, Lions have been really. I think everyone sort of. Maybe if you're a Packers fan, Bears fans, maybe then you would think differently. But most people in the NFL have a little soft spot for the Lions. I think they're a team that struggled for so many years, a bit like the Browns until maybe this off season's changed that. But So there's certainly a team, especially after watching Hard Knocks. I think a lot of people were certainly, certainly fell in love with the Lions a little bit. I mean, Jared Goff has been amazing. I mentioned this last week, and he's still 8th in the league when it comes to passing touchdowns. He's tied with Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's eighth in the league when it comes to passing yards as well. The defense have been a bit shaky, but on offense, only 3 teams have got more yards per game than the Lions this season, and the Lions are in the top 10 when it comes to passing yards as well. As you mentioned, Jamal Williams is doing really well when it comes to the running game. So I think they've got a really good team. I think if they can sort out that defense, I think maybe this year or next year, I think certainly next year, if they can get some good players in free agency or they can get some good players, in the draft, and I think they keep doing what they're doing, with Amar St. Brown as well, who's an absolute beast. I think this team could be a genuine surprise team once again next year. I don't think I'd put anything past that.
Yeah, I agree.
So our next game we're going to preview is the New York Giants traveling to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, the Vikings, of course, everyone knows what happened last week, the biggest comeback win in NFL history. And the Giants did get a win over your Commanders on Sunday Night Football. So this one is intriguing. And I think that the Vikings, even though they won, they were in a free fall still in that game. They really should have lost that game. In most games, they would have. And I think the Giants, that win may give them the confidence. And I think now with the Vikings having secured the division, unlikely to get top seed in the NFC with the Eagles flying, I think the Giants might win this. I think they got more to play for. And I think that in this time of year, with 3 weeks left of the season, I think that's going to really matter in these games. So going to give it to the Giants, even though I think the Vikings are a way better team. And obviously for yourself, this has big implications for your Commanders. Of course, if the Giants lose and you guys can get a win against the Niners or next week or something like that, I think that it's a really big game for you guys as well. So I bet you're cheering on the Vikings in this game. Am I right?
I mean, you'd be wrong, because I hate Kirk Cousins, and I will happily go on record every time I'm on a podcast and say that I don't trust him to win big games. And I maintain that the Vikings are still frauds. They've only, like I said on that show, they've only beaten 2 teams by more than 1 score, Arizona and Miami. They managed to go down 33 points against the Colts. They beat us on a botched penalty on a field goal. They're going to get found out. Whether they get found out this week or in the playoffs, they're going to get found out. There's no way the Vikings are winning the Super Bowl this year. I bet I'm done. That sounds like a Michael Fish statement. It's like, I guarantee there will be no hurricane. Cut to Vikings ticker tape. But yeah, I think that, I mean, again, I don't want the Giants to win. We need them to drop a game between now and the end of the season, and we need to win out in order for us to secure a playoff spot. So I want them to lose, but I don't think they will. I kind of agree with you there. I think the Vikings slip up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's almost for me a lock that they'll lose in their first playoff game unless they play, unless they somehow,
Well, their first playoff game could be against us.
Yeah, that is true. And I just think that I think
we
they
owe them a loss.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could well still win, but I would not be shocked at all if they lose in the first round, because I think that as good as that offense is, with Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and all them and Hawkinson at tight end, I just think that defense for me has not been. I think it's shaky at best. I think they can be exposed. I think they showed that in the win against the Colts. I mean, to go 33 points down, I think most teams would have lost that. So I do.
How many times did Kirk get sacked in that game? A lot. He was under a lot of pressure. And Kirk, when he gets sacked and when he gets beaten up a little bit, he's a completely different quarterback, and not in a good way. I speak from experience.
Yeah, I mean, I have to actually admit, I did actually do a tweet about this, that I actually fell asleep and missed the comeback. It's one of my biggest regrets. I mean, the jet lag, I mentioned the jet lag before, still kicking in. So I think it was 33-7 when I fell asleep on my sofa, and then I wake up and it's 36-all in overtime. I'm thinking, what the hell's gone on here? This game looked dead, and I think it's a real shame that I then stayed up to watch Ravens Browns. It was a terrible game, so it's karma at its finest. But
yeah,
I do.
Mean, was that was the night of the Dolphins Bills game as well, right?
Yeah, so
that was probably the best game I've seen all season.
That was incredible. I mean, I normally do. I tend to watch the late games in the morning, not turn my phone off, don't check my phone, watch it, not knowing the result. And I did that again for this game. And I don't know how these, because for me, it's as a Dolphins fan, I've only seen us play one game in the playoffs in my whole life. My 10 years supporting the team. I mean, most games by this point in the season for us are done. Most times, come week 16, our season's done. Nothing to play for. But it's the first time in years I've actually had a game where it's actually meant a lot. I don't know how you guys do it because it was awfully stressful. I must admit, it was just from start to finish. It was just stress on toast. It really was, and I mean, that game, I mentioned it, in a previous thing, but that game, we should have won that game easily. Not easily, but I think that game was there for the taking. I mean, we did so well on the ground game, and then to not do that to not use run on the run game on the third downs really surprised me. He kept going for these play action plays and these cute little passes on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 6, when we were doing so well with Raheem Mostert in the ground game. I just did not get why McDaniel chose to use the passing game, and I think he'll look back at that game and I think he'll have some regrets that we could have won that game and swept them in the division.
But you're over it.
Yeah, I'm over
too much about it.
Yeah,
since then you put it in the past and moved on with your life.
Yeah, trying to. It's still a bit sore, but I think we never were. I was never expecting to win the division anyway, so I think as long as we make the playoffs, that's progress to me. Anything more is a bonus. But I think I think we showed in that game, unlike the last 2 weeks, that we can be competitive and we can win these games, or at least can be competitive in these games against a good team. So I think it was almost a moral victory for me. I think just the way we performed after how the last 2 weeks went was good enough for me, and I think that was really encouraging to see that come to the playoffs, playing the Chiefs, playing the Bills, all the Bengals in cold weather. I think we showed that Tua showed, as well as the team showed, that we can play in these cold conditions, and I think that's really encouraging when it comes if we make the playoffs.
People forget he was at Alabama. It's not a warm place in the winter.
Yeah, it's. I think did he do a tweet or Instagram post about that Tua, saying that it does snow in Alabama, but which I thought.
There you go. See,
yeah. I thought it was warm. I didn't realize it was cold. I thought being
in the summer it is, but yeah.
Okay.
But you don't play football in the summer.
no. I mean, great if they did, but yeah, sadly they don't. Next up, talking of Bills, they travel to the Bears, another cold place. I think this is probably the easiest one to predict of the week. The Bears, I think Justin Fields, he's a doubt for this game anyway, and even if he was playing as good as he's been at times this season, I think the Bills have way too much. And I think they're still battling for the number 1 overall seed. And I think that's really all I can say. I think it's a pretty easy prediction. Bills to win.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. I think the Bills for me are just, I think if it's not them or the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, or the Bengals for that matter, I'll be very surprised. Now the Cleveland Browns host the New Orleans Saints. Again, I think it's quite an easy one. The Browns, I think their defense has been really good in recent weeks. Hate to mention his name, but Deshaun Watson, I think he's sort of learning every week. He's getting that rust off his back, and I think that he had a great game. Was it 2 weeks ago? In terms of yardage and all that, and I think this game again, whether it's him, whether it's Nick Chubb, whether it's Peoples-Jones, I think the Browns will have way too much for this really weird and inconsistent Saints team.
Okay, I mean it's fair. I'm going to go opposite. I think the Saints are going to come in. Andy Dalton back, imagining he's back at the Bengals, going back into the Brown Stadium, got a bit of a point to prove. There's going to be a very hostile crowd against him. I think Andy Dalton balls out and slings it. And I think, Olave gets 200 yards. And yeah, I think that somehow the Saints pull off a win here.
You know what? I love that. I love that. Every week you get a shock result. And I think, I'm hoping that that's the case because, after what's happened this season and my terrible time in Cleveland recently, I'm sort of always rooting against the Browns. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is now at this point. It's funny. They kind of went for everyone felt sorry for them. Everyone's feeling good for them. And now it's like, nah, no one likes them again. We play them. You know what I mean? We're playing them in 2 weeks. And I think that's probably going to be the only time when people are going to be rooting for the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, I think even some Browns fans, even they've sort of jumped ship now. I mean, was it Dan Hanzus, whichever one of the around the NFL guys?
Yeah, Rachel Bonnetta.
Was she a Browns fan, Bonnetta?
She was, and then she dumped them, yeah. She was looking for a new team at the beginning of the season.
I do not blame her at all. I think I'd rather be neutral than support the Browns. Seahawks, Chiefs. The Chiefs have secured the division, of course, and they'll be hosting the Seahawks, who after such a good start to the year, they really have sort of capitulated this season, and I think they'll lose again. I think the Chiefs will win. I think this is another easy prediction. I think the Chiefs have a habit of losing games they shouldn't have. Look at the Colts game earlier on this season, and they
Well,
almost
and,
lost.
I mean,
Texans.
the Texans took them to the wire as well. You know what I mean? That's the worst team in the NFL. They're going toe to toe with the Chiefs. You know,
Yeah.
so again, I think it should be a foregone conclusion, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the NFL. Anyone can beat anyone. But I just think that, with Geno Smith, he's not been quite as good as he was. I just don't think that they've got much of a hope. But I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong because I quite like the Seahawks. Had a great time in Seattle. So, I think the Chiefs is going to be them. Bengals at the Patriots. I mean, we all know what happened in their last game, both of these teams. Bengals came back from 17-point deficit, and the Patriots, I don't know, I can't explain what happened in that last play. And I think the Bengals are going to win. I'm hoping for Bengals win because that really helps us out. And I just think the Bengals are absolutely rolling right now, and they are probably the most informed team in the AFC. So I'm going to give the Bengals the win.
I agree. I mean, Bengals are finding their form at the right time. They've shaken off, the remnants of the Super Bowl hangover that played them at the beginning of the season. They're getting players back to full health. They had a little bit of a bit of a health scare in the middle of the season there. I still maintain that Joe Mixon's one of the best running backs in football. I think he is. I don't know why he's always considered a second tier running back. I always target him in fantasy, and once again, as every year, he's proved that he's worth it because he's fantastic, and a lot of attention goes to the receivers on that team, but they're allowed to work because of the threat that he poses in the backfield, especially as not only a runner but a pass catcher as well. So yeah, I like the Bengals.
Yeah, I think they've got a great team. When you look at that team, I mean, the defense alone has been really good. I mean, Hendrickson is a player I've always loved, and I think look at that offense itself: Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. The list is endless, and I think it is just it's just a team that I think they'll be a team that challenges for years. I think they once again this year after losing their first two games, they're third seed in the AFC right now. And I think they got everything in place to be a team for years that will be battling with the Bills, with the Chiefs, hopefully the Dolphins, but probably not. But yeah, I think they're a team that really is on a high right now. And I think that I'm intrigued what's going to happen when Burrow gets paid. I think that'll be that may well change things. But right now, whilst he's on I believe still a rookie deal, if not on his last, I can't think he's got 1 or 2 years left. But I think when he gets paid, it might be different. But for now, I think the Bengals are absolutely rolling, and they're a team for me that definitely will make the division around and more, unless something horribly wrong happens. Now, next up is Houston traveling to the Titans. I mean, I think this could be the one that could be the shock result. I mean, the Titans have been in terrible form. They've lost their last 4 games, and they look really. They've proved that if you stop Derrick Henry, you stop the Titans, and I think that they are a team that really worries me when it comes to the playoffs. And I think they could easily lose the division to the Jags, the way both those teams are playing right now. But I just think that against the Texans, I think they're going to be I think they'll find a way to get the job done and get a win and get that confidence boost back in the locker room.
Yeah, I think that out of all the divisions, the AFC South's one of those ones where on their day, any one of those teams can beat any of the other ones. And I don't think you can say that confidently about any other division. And so, yeah, I think it wouldn't be a surprise if Houston managed to pull one out of the bag at all. I mean, I think what you've said about the Titans is accurate. Until Traylon Burks comes back and starts really providing a dynamic option to throw the ball to, they're going to suffer because I think the loss of AJ Brown hit them harder than they want to realize, and they are a bit of a one-trick pony now with Derrick Henry. So yeah, like you said, stop Henry, they run out of options pretty quick.
Absolutely. Right, our final game we're going to preview is the Commanders against the Niners. Of course, this is your team coming off a loss where the Niners did clinch the division after that Thursday night win over the Seahawks. I mean, myself, I hate to say it, Chris, I'm going to give it to the Niners. I think they're a team that.
All right, thanks. Bye.
And that was all. I'll see you guys next week. I think the Niners for me. I think they're the best team in the NFC overall, pound for pound. I think could be if it's not them or the Eagles, maybe the Cowboys involved in this as well. involved playing in the Super Bowl, I think I'll be shocked. So I think for me, the Niners all day long. But how about you, Chris? As a fan, how are you seeing this game going into it?
Well, I can only hope that one thing happens, because if we lose this, we're done. There's a very, very slim mathematical road after this game if we don't win. I'm not saying it will ruin my Christmas, but it will ruin my Christmas if we don't beat them. I can't handle that loss, that tight, controversial loss to the Giants, which I stayed up for, followed by staying up on Christmas to watch us get beaten by a team that wears the same colors as Santa Claus. It would be too painful.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think you'd have to avoid the. I mean, I'm lucky in a way that my game's on after Christmas dinner, so I get to have the presents, Christmas dinner, and I get to then watch it. Whereas for you, if you lose, you've got the whole that day to think
Yeah,
about
it's
it.
going to completely affect my mood for the entire day,
Yeah.
one way or another, regardless of what happens. And it's all going to come down to defenses, as always. They have a scary good one, and if our O-line can hold up and protect Heineke, we've got a decent chance of at least taking a game to them. But if they can't protect him, and if Brian Robinson can't run the ball, then it's going to be a high scoring game against us, I think.
I mean, looking at the defense, you mentioned it then. I mean, the defense has really bounced back for you guys after great 2020 performance on the defense. A bit of a.
I mean, you say that, Andy, but they didn't manage to do it on Sunday. Yeah, we had 3 and outs a few times. Yeah, but I don't know how many sacks there were. Not a lot. There were 0 interceptions. Our D line didn't stop Saquon Barkley when we needed to. I was really annoyed with our defense last week. And it showed me how important they are, because if they don't, our offense can't get it done on its own. It can't. There was, I think, the first drive Washington had coming out of the half was poetry. And then there was probably another half drive later on that was good. But if the defense doesn't turn up, our offense can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats now, I mean, you're 4th when it comes to yards per game allowed, 8th when it comes to passing yards allowed this season. Rushing wise, you're in the top 15, 12, it looks like here. And then in terms of points allowed, you're in the top 10 again. So it's still been a good defense overall this season. But I think you're coming up against a team who's got number one in pretty much all those things I just mentioned. The 49ers are pretty much top of all of those. So I think it's I think it could be quite a low scoring game, quite a defensive battle between both teams. But yeah, I think I'm going to give it to the Niners, and I think you are as well, if that's right.
No, I can't bet against my team, and I never will. So I think that by some Christmas miracle, Chase Young is available, and he shows Mr. Boza that there's another big guy coming out of Ohio State that can ruin a game just as well as he can. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed as well. I mean, we're running low on time, so we'll do quick predictions for the last 5 games. So Eagles, Cowboys, going to give it to the Eagles to wrap up the division.
Eagles.
Yeah. Next up, Pittsburgh hosting the Raiders. The game they're all focusing on about the.
I hope Raiders win.
Patch.
You know what I mean? I do. I feel like I really do, because Willie, my boy, works here, warehouse manager, Raiders fan. Yeah. It really affects his mood, and so it makes for a more conducive working environment when we both win on Mondays. It's a rare occurrence, but it is fun when it does happen.
Yeah, and my brother is also a Raiders fan, so I think it's a Christmas Day, it'd be a much worse atmosphere if it was.
There we go, exactly. Completely self-serving reasons, Andy. I love it. Yeah, we're on the same page.
But I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers will still win the game.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, we're opposite there. I think the Raiders are going to do
it. Dolphins, Packers. This is the obviously we'll try and get Ash on next week to review that game, but going to give it to the Dolphins on that one. I think we proved enough in that last game that we can beat them, and even though the Packers won, this morning for us Brits, but last night for Americans, I just think that our offense is too scary for most teams. So yeah, going to give it to the Dolphins. Back my boys. How about you, Chris?
Well, until you said you thought the Niners were going to beat us, I would have said, yeah, Dolphins. But now I'm going to have to go with my girl Ash. Packers all the way by 40.
By 40? Okay, I'll
hold you're going to have a terrible Christmas. Packers are going to give you a nice big lump of coal in your stocking.
Oh God, I'm actually donning underneath this. I'm actually donning a t-shirt I got from Lambeau. I think I'll have to burn it if they beat us. Put it in the
Ash needs a bit of luck. She's had a rough season. Every time she's watched her team live, they've lost. So give her a little Christmas joy. That's what I say.
So I'm actually the same. I'm 0-4 watching games live. So I saw us play in London last year. We lost that. Saw us play in Cincinnati, the Tua injury game. Of course, we lost that. Saw us play at Miami against the Vikings. Lost that. Saw us play against the Chargers 2 weeks ago, and we lost that. So I feel like I'm a bad luck charm. And I think there's been a petition in Finns Nation UK to get me banned from going to Dolphins games ever again.
Yeah, I think that's fair and is warranted. Let's
Yeah.
wait to that.
I agree. I'll stay on my sofa, I think, for that one. Broncos traveling to the Rams. Going to give it to the Rams. I think the Broncos have really been. I mean, both teams have been bad this year, but I think the Broncos have been even worse than the Rams. And I think the Rams will get back to winning ways. I think the Broncos with Brett Ripien will still be quarterback next week potentially. I think that it's not a lock of the week. I think the Rams are still pretty shaky, but I think the Rams will comfortably win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Rams have been such a disappointment. So have the Broncos. It's sad because I fantasy wise, I did pick a lot of Rams and Broncos players earlier on. I was like, oh, I'm going to crush this, and then dropped them all by week 6. And if you noticed on the new Madden advert, the only person that gets blown up is Allen Robinson. He's the only player that gets just completely starfish, because it's like, well, what can you say, Allen Robinson? You've done nothing. You've done nothing for 3 years now at this point. You get flattened. That's it. That's all you're going to be, is fodder for better players now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in one of my main sort of dynasty league, which obviously helped me win it last year, I have Stafford and Cup. So last year it was great. I got first or second seed in the playoffs and then won the whole thing. But I've been knocked out this week because Mark Andrews decided not to be targeted in that game last week. And obviously I chose Jared Goff over Trevor Lawrence, which will haunt me to this day. But I still lost by 80 points. So not a good year this year for me. So thank you to Rams for that. Our penultimate game sees the Buccaneers travel to the Cardinals. I think the Buccaneers will win, even with, their struggles. I think, Colt McCoy against Tom Brady, not really any question there. So yeah, Buccaneers win.
I love my boy Colt, man. Love my boy Colt. Love me
You're
some Colt McCoy. Love me some Colt McCoy, baby. Long time Washington backup. Got to see him beat the Cowboys in Jerry World, Monday Night Football 2016, Halloween game. So I love Colt. And, even though you're probably right, I'm going to be rooting for Colt McCoy to lay some slap down on the Bucks. I want that division to get more competitive. The NFC South. I want the Bucks to drop some games. I want the Panthers and the Saints to win a couple of games. I want it to be a real argument in that division as to who gets it. I want it to come down to the final weekend. Because amazing. Why not? You know what I mean? It's like watching a penalty shootout when your team's not involved. It's like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Love watching potential pain get administered out to fan bases that I have no interest in.
And then finally, Colts, Chargers, easy one for me. Chargers in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think the Colts go up by 33 and then lose it in overtime.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that has been the end of our Week 16 preview. So thank you, Chris, for coming on, first of all.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you guys next time.